Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second half of our third round of matchups. In the last one, we saw Persona 5 and Metroid Prime moving on. In this one, we have a couple of interesting matchups. I think these ones are all going to be a lot closer. The last round, I feel like we kind of knew what was going to advance, or the last episode.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know which is going to advance in either. I know the ones I would like to see advance, but it's a good argument for either of these matchups, and so I am excited. This is kind of the matchup of the century in this one.
This is going to be probably one of the biggest debates, honestly, that we've had ever.
I think so. It's Wind Waker versus Ocarina of Time. Before we get into the debate, because I'm sure Nick's going to have a lot of bad things to say about Wind Waker, and I'm going to have a lot of bad things to say about Ocarina of Time. We both love both of these games. These games are incredible, legendary Zelda titles. They both deserve to go on in the end. I don't think anyone's going to be legitimately upset that either of these games made it to the semifinals. This is basically just about pride between me and Nick at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're both legendary games. Ocarina of Time was the first 3D Zelda game on the Nintendo 64. Revolutionary, broke down barriers, and for being the first 3D Zelda game, it was pretty close to being flawless. There were a lot of clunky elements to it, but for being the very first of its kind, it was incredible. Wind Waker, and this is going to be the first point that I make, so I'm going to start the debate now pretty much. On a template level, I think Wind Waker improved on everything that Ocarina of Time did. I'm a fan of its soundtrack more. To me, Wind Waker is like the second version that just improved on everything that the original game was. I feel like Ocarina of Time, inside of itself, had a lot of flaws that Wind Waker didn't have.
I disagree completely.
So the first one I want to start out with then, because what I want to talk about here, as you mentioned, the gummy ships in Kingdom Hearts, what I want to mention that I think is a glaring flaw in Ocarina of Time is some of the later temples, particularly two, the Water Temple and the Shadow Temple. Not that they're badly designed levels, like in terms of being tedious, but they were poorly designed for what the game was. And Water Temple especially, in terms of having to constantly switch on Iron Boots on and off, it was awful. You constantly had to go into your menu to switch it on and off. Wind Waker did improve that aspect of it, right? And I know I'm focusing on one item in particular to start this, but, I think it's one example of a greater scheme where in Wind Waker, in the Wind Temple, you had to switch your Iron Boots on and off, but you just had to press one button. You equip the Iron Boots and you press X.
They did improve on that. I will give you that.
So I think in terms of functionality and ease and flow of the game, I think Wind Waker wins that because you don't have to jump in and out of the menu. And even when you do, having to, like it asks you if you want to save every time you leave the Ocarina of Time menu, loading it up and going in and out of the Ocarina of Time menu is a little bit more tedious than it is for Wind Waker. Wind Waker's menu opens and closes a lot quicker. And it's a really small detail, but I think if you have to constantly go in and out of the menu a lot, like you do in a Zelda game, Wind Waker does that better. I feel like Wind Waker wastes less of your time and you focus more on adventuring. Ocarina of Time, to its credit, was the first to do it, but I think that's one of the flaws. It breaks the immersion a lot, I think, in Ocarina of Time. And I think that's one of the
only temple that's a case for is the Water Temple. It's not a case for any other area of the game. And
the Shadow Temple a little bit with the hover
talking about
boots.
The fact that is one part of the game that a really large majority of Wind Waker is actually focused on the Triforce collecting, which I can get into later. But I'm saying that if you're saying that that's the thing that you're going to ding on Ocarina of Time, you got to do the same thing for Wind Waker.
No, you're right. But I was going to say it's not just the Water Temple. It's the because the Shadow Temple less so. The hover boots you don't use as often.
The Shadow Temple doesn't make you always open up your inventory though.
It does with the hover boots, not as often.
The hover boots you can just keep on though. That's just a different kind of playstyle.
Yeah, but it gets annoying as shit if you do that.
If your playstyle's like that, you can adapt to the game. You can adapt to the game where that's a non-issue. I will concede it for the Water Temple because that's a necessity. The hover boots you can keep on and you can figure out ways around it. The Iron Boots are a necessity though.
Finding a way around a flaw doesn't make the flaw go away. Like saying, oh, you can just keep the hover boots on doesn't mean that's not an issue. It's still an issue. It's just you can do that
how about
instead.
This? If I concede this point, can we move? If I concede this, I want to talk about something different.
Okay, so that's fine. So yeah.
I'll talk about so in terms of trying to break certain parts of the immersion, yes, it was a start, and I can understand that. But in terms of core game design, Ocarina of Time is worlds better than Wind Waker, and I'm gonna make a point. So here's mine to start off.
Overworld sucked in Ocarina of Time, Nick.
No, it didn't. Let me talk. Oh, you're talking like water's better? No, get out of here. So let's talk about the childhood. So if you know, Ocarina of Time is divided into two very big sections: childhood and adulthood. And basically, I already touched on this in an early part. The call to action basically And Wind Waker is your sister getting kidnapped. In Ocarina of Time, it's a Great Deku Tree passing away. Two great calls to action, which is like, all right, you're an adventurer, you're a hero, you're going on your journey, get out there. Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time go two different ways, though. In Wind Waker, again, your main goal in the beginning, after you're like going to Dragon Roost Cavern, going to the Temple of Gods and whatnot, all of that is centered around the concept of getting your sister back, which is nice, family concept, and it has good motivation. In Ocarina of Time, it's all about natural balance. It's all about finding the balance between man and nature. Your childhood, every single dungeon that you're going to, and I touched on this very slightly earlier, is about puring the the natural aspect of it, and the deities that those temples are embodying. The first temple is the Great Deku Tree. The Dodongo Cavern is from basically like an old Dodongo, basically. And King Jabu Jabu's belly is the last temple. Sorry, Travis, you're not going to talk as much on this one. I got a lot to say.
I was not expecting to talk like at all in either of.
I like seeing Travis not talk and have him make the final say at the end. He's like the judge more than anything.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. But either way, it's all about purifying nature. All Ganondorf is trying to do is just corrupting nature. And it's a dynamic switch once you go into the adult section. In the adult, all you're trying to cleanse is when Ganondorf takes over, when all natural balance is thrown completely out the window, and it's all about being built on the strength of one man, on manhood, and that's Ganondorf. And the reason this is so significant is that when you're an adult Link going through cleansing these temples, it's all returning the balance of nature and basically mankind, because it can definitely sway in one way. And you're seeing all these changes in real time, which is huge. You see Lake Hylia get refilled after you beat Morphi, I believe the person's name. You see Death Mountain being calmed. You see a new sprout that's going to grow into the next Great Deku Tree. You're seeing all of this happen in real time, and you're seeing the balance getting restored into having nature, the natural balance between man and just forest, everything about that. You're seeing that happen, and it's not just a background change. You're not just seeing like you've seen in Super Nintendo games. Final Fantasy VI is a great example. You can see like a house get burned down. You don't actually see the water in Lake Hylia getting refilled. This is all revolutionary when it comes to a Zelda game. This level of purpose and duality is not experienced in Wind Waker. It's just not. The enemies you fight and the decisions that you make carry more weight in Ocarina of Time. Everything matters more. Wind Waker might have the smoother gameplay. It might have improved on that, but it doesn't even come close on how Link develops or how strong of a protagonist Link is in the journey. Ocarina of Time Link is one of the greatest protagonists in any Zelda game, and I'm going to go into that more later. I'll make your debates first.
My issue with what you said is that's partially true.
It's
because
all true.
of a really cheap trope, though. The only reason we see the world change so drastically is because it does the 7-year jump. Wind Waker's world does a lot of that, not on that grand of a scale, but it does that without any sort of time travel trope. After you collect the second pearl and the whole sky starts to go gray and you go to Grayfish Isle and you can see the effect Ganondorf had. When you travel to Outset Island later and you see that monsters have kind of taken over the land. The world in that game is dynamic too. And you actually interact with the world a lot more directly.
I'm just saying... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, because the only reason you really see that in Ocarina of Time is because of that time trope. Because you go 7 years in the future, and so you see things change. If you take out the time-traveling part of it, the world's still dynamic. I'm not going to say it's not, because like you said, you do something in a level, and then it goes back to normal, like with Lake Hylia and it being frozen over, which is awesome. I think that's so awesome that Ocarina of Time had that element to it. But Wind Waker is similar in that regard, I would say, where it's just not as obvious in Wind Waker, because Wind Waker is a lot bigger in terms of the world size, and Wind Waker doesn't have as many.
And it has a lot of empty areas. That's not good for the game.
It doesn't have. Okay, that's going to be our next point, because I was going to say something about Ocarina of Time with that as well. Wind Waker is dynamic too. When Wind Waker, when you go back to Outset Island to get that last pearl and it's dark and there's choo-choos all over the place and your grandma's sick, like characters are changing in that game. The world is changing in that game too. So let's not act like Wind Waker doesn't change at all, right? Wind Waker does have pretty significant changes.
It doesn't change as much as Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time has better characters too, which I'll get into later.
I don't know. I can't think of any Ocarina of Time characters off the top of my head, but you'll remind me later, so we'll get to that the next point. The next point I wanted to talk about is the overworld. Ocarina of Time's overworld is, to me, it's garbage.
I think Wind Waker's is garbage.
It's not. Wind Waker has a lot more... No, it's not! That's not an argument, Nick!
I'll tell you why later. I'm letting you defend yourself first.
No, you're not. You're saying, no, it's not. Let me talk. Wind Waker, yes, it has a big overworld. the Wii U version did solve it with the quick sailing, but
We're
I won't use that.
We're not talking about the HD version.
I'm just saying it is something that was fixed later on. But even
There was a
without
problem.
that, there's a lot of islands along the way that are still fun to stop at. Ocarina of Time doesn't have a lot of little side things for you to do. You just go from world to world. Ocarina of Time's overworld, that Hyrule Field, is a useless area except to take it from one area to the next.
That's what the ocean is in my mind.
But the ocean has a lot more side things. So as you're traveling from Great Roost Island to Windfall Island or whatever the case, as you're traveling from there to there, you'll come across other islands. You'll come across little things in the sea, like the big octos that you might have to fight. There's things to do in the ocean. So the ocean is bigger and it takes longer to traverse, but there's things to do along the way. In Ocarina of Time, when you're walking from Hyrule Castle to Lake Hylia, there's nothing to do. Right? Unless it comes nighttime and the little skeletons pop up, but it's just walking or riding your horse. And it's a lot shorter, but it's just a big empty field, and I feel like they could have done so much with that. They could have had little characters out there. They could have had someone camping out there that has a little side quest for you. They could have had more. Outside of the part later with the pose, there's not a whole lot going on in that world. The Great Sea has a lot going on. So I never understood that whole diss on the Great Sea of it's a tedious thing to do. It's tedious if you're trying to go only if you're trying to go from point A to point B. As a kid, I never just went from one place to the next. Every time I passed by an island, I had to explore it and learn about it. And if you do that, the Great Sea is filled with things to do. It's just
Ocarina. I'm waiting.
My point's done, so you can go on.
In Ocarina of Time, they literally talk about zombies always popping out, and that's one of the reasons why they're not out there. That world is filled with monsters. That's the reason why there's not many people out there at all. I will say that the Great Sea, yes, it does have more stuff to do, but they needed to put something in there because the Great Sea was just so empty and boring. The reason why it was fixed with the fast sail later on, the reason why they had to bring in the warping part and whatnot. In Ocarina of Time, the warping had meaning. You actually had to do that to get in certain areas of the game, get to the Shadow Temple. You needed to use the Nocturne of Shadow. They put the skip stuff in there because the Great Sea was boring. There wasn't anything to really do.
I don't think
they had to bring those inclusions in because it was a big blemish on the game. They had to fix them in Wind Waker HD because people complained about them. They were big problems in Wind Waker that were addressed and improved upon, yes, but in terms of things that were holding it back, you have to agree that one of the main complaints of Wind Waker was the sailing. Yes, people can like it, and I did enjoy most of it. That was one of the biggest complaints of Wind Waker. I think the biggest reason for that is because people didn't want to explore. Zelda games are about exploration. The people that didn't like going from island to islands probably don't fit into a Zelda game because the original Zelda game was all about exploring a big, vast world. And the fun of that was finding the different caverns, finding the different dungeons. Ocarina of Time didn't have a lot of that, and I think that's the issue. Ocarina of Time didn't have a lot of, come do this on the side of your great quest. Wind Waker had so many extra things to do, so many little mini-games and random islands. In Wind Waker, it stared you in the face of some of the random stuff that you could do. In Ocarina of Time, you had those options. You just had to literally explore the places that you were gone to. Those side quests were available, and the extra stuff that you could do was in Kakariko Village, was in the town square, was in the diving mini game in Zora's Domain. They were there. They just weren't standing right in your face like it was in Wind Waker. No, Wind Waker was, hey, do side content. Ocarina of Time was, here it is. You can do it if you want. But I'm not just talking about little mini games like shooting an arrow or diving. I'm talking a whole new place to explore, right? In Ocarina of Time, you have I don't know, there's 4 or 5, I think, main little hub worlds on the side there. Yeah. There's nothing outside of those. Zelda Wind Waker you have outside islands, very tiny islands that don't have anything to do with them. You fight some monsters and that's it. But they're not all very tiny. Some of them are very tiny with just a couple mini games and stuff. But a lot of them, and this is what I think is so cool about Wind Waker, is you say that and that's true, but some of those little tiny islands end up being where Triforce pieces are. And then you have to dive into that place and try to find the Triforce piece, and you realize this small, silly island actually has some tremendous value. I look at the Ghost Ship, for example, where it's a random place on the ocean, but it's this awesome ghost ship, and the ghost ship itself, I think, was a bit tedious in its design of going through random plots. But just as a kid, whoa, seeing this ghost ship out there in the middle of the Great Sea, again, it's a big empty place, but there's so many little things like that that make it fun to explore. Hyrule Field is smaller,
but nothing goes on in Hyrule Field except for pose and skeletons. But that's
But what
it. There's
you're
nothing
saying
else.
about Wind Waker is that they designed a problem with the Great Sea. That was a problem that was in the design, and they fixed it with a different problem, which was the Triforce collecting things. That's two problems that's trying to alleviate one solution.
No,
I
the
don't think that's
Triforce
a
collecting,
fix.
I don't think was a fix for it. I think the fix for it was just the islands in general. I think having a lot of stuff to do on the sea, like the ghost ship and the big octos and stuff, I think was their fix. It's a big empty place, but as you're going down that empty sea, you see different things. There are sharks that'll swim by you. It's not like you're just traveling from point A to point B. Ocarina of Time is you're walking down the field, nothing goes on, period, unless it's nighttime with skeletons popping up. But in the Great Sea, there's different things going on. You might come across the submarine. You might come across a pirate ship. You might come across the little outpost things with the bokoblins. And they're all tiny, but they're things to do while you're traveling through the ocean. I'm not saying it's not tedious. I get that for some people it's not fun, but they alleviated that for some people that like to explore. If you like to explore and move around, you have that option. Ocarina of Time does not even give you that option. You just walk from point A to point B. When you get to the dungeons, it's different.
Because if you seek out the side content, like the mask trading and whatnot, you can find it.
But mask trading is not fun. It's literally the definition of a... What's that called? Like a fetch quest. That's literally all it is. So that wasn't like the most exciting quest. Again, that's personal taste.
I think in my mind that's a different way to like. It gives you a change of, say, you put on the mask, you get a different kind of text box and whatnot. That's changing your appearance and getting a different reaction and giving different lines of dialogue. I don't think that's a fetch quest. I think it has fetch quest elements of it, and I think that's very close to what it is. But I think it goes deeper than what that is. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go back to, if we're passing on this, because I think we said what we want to about that.
We should go to the next point. We're taking a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm going to the point of just the core parts and I'm going to the supporting cast basically right now. And this is probably what I think is Wind Waker's biggest strength that not many people point out. Every single time that you're going through the game and you defeat one of the dungeons as you're an adult, it's almost a token of what you have to do to become a man. Then this is one of the points that I'm going to bring is the fact that Ocarina of Time is such a more relatable experience to anybody who plays it. So as you start off your game, the first person you meet in Ocarina of Time Master Quest, you meet Saria. You meet Saria and she's like basically your childhood friend. As you're going through the game, the next person you meet in terms like a Goron is Darunia for Brotherhood. And it goes on and whatnot, but basically my point is that I'm getting at is right after you beat the temple and you basically rescued the sage that's been fighting the monster in there, you basically get a token of that milestone that you have to pass. So when you beat the Forest Temple and you cleanse that, you get Saria's Forest Medallion, and that's basically the symbol of friendship that you have growing up. Then with Darunia, it's brotherhood. With Ruto, Ruto is obsessed with love. That's what her character is about. Impa with loyalty, and Nabooru from the Spirit Temple with lust. Every one of those is a milestone that is pretty much unavoidable as you're going through and developing as just a person in general. And this is what I want to bring about. This is where a little bit of extra research helps comes in. In an interview with Enuma and Miyamoto, they basically talked about how important it was that Link had to leave all of the 4 girls that he met in his childhood, losing everything just to become an adult and save Hyrule, showing that as you're becoming an adult, you're losing so much of what you loved about being a kid and whatnot. All of those are milestones that you have to pass, and Link doesn't have to Link doesn't ever have to overcome that in Wind Waker. Link doesn't have to lose anything. Link still saves his sister. Link's grandma is still alive. There's no stakes. There's nothing that really ties you in. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to have a deeper reason to go on and do all this fighting that it is. It's just, oh, you're a descendant of Link and you have to do this. No, I feel like that's a weak premise. I feel like in other Zelda games, you have a deeper meaning on why you're having to fight, and those stakes are higher in Ocarina of Time. That final fight that you have against Ganondorf, again, like in the very top of his tower, is childhood versus adulthood. At that point, just to beat Ganondorf, just to destroy that evil, you have to get those you have to get those medallions, proving you've became that man. And at the end of it, Link still becomes a kid. So the biggest tragedy is Link, as a kid, was already an adult and lost everything just to get there. All of those combined lead to such a deeper experience for Link as a protagonist. It's not just the hero story of, I have to defeat Ganondorf because he's evil and corrupting everybody. It's more than that. And in Wind Waker, I'm sorry, that isn't prevalent. That isn't something that Link has to overcome. It's childhood versus adulthood at its forefront, and that's such a strong message for when you play the game. Now, counterpoint.
Obviously I disagree with what you're saying. And I'm not going to sit there. I would say they're equal in this area. Wind Waker does have a lot of what you said it doesn't have. I feel like at the beginning of the game, your sister gets kidnapped. He doesn't go on an adventure because he's a descendant of Link. It's not like, you're a hero, you have to do this. The whole reason that he ended up fighting Ganondorf is because he wanted to save his sister. He's living an innocent life like a child, similar to Ocarina of Time's Child Link, until his sister gets kidnapped. He's sort of forced out of his innocence in that game as well, where now all of a sudden
he's
his
not
sister's been
nearly to
kidnapped.
the degree. Not nearly to the
Okay,
degree.
Stop interrupting. I didn't interrupt you once. All right.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So again, he lost his innocence in that regard. He was forced to. It's not like his grandma's going to go on this adventure to save his sister. He's the only one that's going to do it. So he has to go on the pirates with a bunch of pirates that don't even really want him around, go to Forsaken Fortress, try to save his sister, and he fails. The first time he even fails at it, and that's when he learns about Ganondorf. And that's, I think, when the game starts to show you this is a lot bigger than, hey, someone's sister just got kidnapped, right? It goes so much beyond that trope when you start to realize, well, your sister got kidnapped because they thought it was the princess. And then you start to learn that, hey, Tetra, spoiler alert later on, is actually the princess. So Link wasn't thrown into any mission, right? It's not like you're a descendant, you have to defeat Ganondorf. There were plot points that sort of led to, all right, this is what needs to be done now because of my sister, because of my relationship with Tetra, all of that. Yeah, eventually with Link, you start to realize he was the destined hero, but I don't think that's the reason that it happened, right? I don't think the game's plot was, you're the descendant, you need to do this. I think there were so many plot points. Even if that wasn't a part of the game, Link still would have defeated Ganondorf because he became close with Tetra, who ended up being the princess. And his sister was essentially kidnapped by Ganondorf. I think, in the end, Link would have done that anyway. I think they just added that on there to kind of show that this relates to past, video games and all of that. But also kind of learning about the backstory of Wind Waker, how, Wind Waker essentially Hyrule after it kind of got flooded over and, the islands are kind of what's left over, and seeing how it relates to the past Zelda games and all of that. I think there's a lot more to this game than people initially see. I didn't do research. I don't know about the Brotherhood and if there's anything like that in this game. But what I do know is you build relationships with characters that are kind of assholes. Prince Komali at the beginning doesn't like you. In the end, he takes the Great Dragon Valu to save you from Ganondorf, right? He ends up saving you in that fire. And so do all of I forgot the bird's name from that tribe. It's the Ritos. When they come and save you as well from Dragon Roost Islands. So you're building connections with people that you didn't have any connections with. Link goes on this adventure, and he builds relationships with different people that ultimately help him out. Link is clearly underpowered in this game. He's clearly, just like in Ocarina of Time, not capable of beating Ganondorf. And there's multiple times Ganondorf could have easily killed him. Both times he visited Forsaken Fortress. But both times he's saved by the boat, and then also by all of his friends the second time. And so I think there's a lot more in Wind Waker than meets the eye. I think people like to say this is the plot of, it's a kid that's defeating Ganondorf because it's a comical looking game, but there's a lot more going on in this game than meets the eye. Ocarina of Time has a darker atmosphere overall to it. I think that's why it tends to feel gloomier. Wind Waker is definitely a cheerier game, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have detail. I think people get those mixed up. It's a cheery game, therefore it doesn't have detail, but that's not true. Wind Waker has a lot of detail inside of what it's trying to do with the character relationships, with the boss, and how Link transforms. People just don't see that. People just want to see the comical side of the game, which I think is unfair. I think people love the beauty of the comical side, but you have to respect the detail in the story. And I'm not going to argue and say it's better or worse than Ocarina of Time. I think both are telling very different styles of stories. So I don't know, but I don't think it's worse than Ocarina of Time. I think they're equal in terms of the story they're telling. They're just telling very different stories in different ways. The other thing I want to mention too, and this is a small point, I know we're really past the time we were going to go for, which I expected.
Oh, this one I feel like is going to go on for a little longer. I have extra points, man.
The one thing I do want to mention that I don't want to argue about is the soundtrack. I think both games have excellent soundtrack pieces in different ways. That's another point I don't want to debate between. I think they're both equally amazing.
We can skip on that.
Yeah, they're different in that, but I want to bring it up because I want to touch on all the points for this debate. I think you would agree they're both amazing soundtracks. I don't think it's fair to debate that point, so we'll move on from that.
Okay. Some of my thoughts that I'm going to give before I kind of give my closing then, because I know we are getting longer. But I mean, I think this is a really big, important debate.
It is.
The other things that I want to mention, and I'm definitely going to leave Mike some room to counterpoint this. I want to talk about the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple, and how I think that they are probably one of the worst. Like also Temple of the Gods. How even though I enjoyed them, I think that they're just badly designed dungeons. The fact that you always have to use a command melody to get from point A to point B, it was a unique concept. I think that it had some ideas that it could have been done really well. But in my mind, it was just an overall, I'm just going to say boring in my mind, but it was just a lacking experience. In my mind, it just never felt like it could focus in on one point. It was kind of cool how you could incorporate, like, you have the I don't know, the harp instrument, whatever that medley have, that could kind of shine away some of the darkness so you can go and use your item and do so. It's a decent idea on paper, but I feel like you take so much of the time, like what you're saying with the Iron Boots, on always having to pull out the Wind Waker, use the command melody, and put them back and forth. They did get better over time, and how you can incorporate the like the hook shot in with the planting trees of Makar. It's decent ideas, but in my mind, it doesn't even come close to the caliber of the dungeons in Ocarina of Time, like with the Fire Temple and the Forest Temple, and the fact that you had to get all the flames back. Yes, I would say in my mind, when you have to do those, it's very easy to have just like a one-button input or whatnot to switch between characters and whatnot. Final Fantasy VI did this very well, where it is a game that supports a larger cast, and they want you to get involved in multiple casts. So you bring more than one person to a dungeon just to get through dungeon puzzles, and it's done by just switching with a one button input. You take too much time and I think it's immersion breaking on just having to use the command melody to have that stupid statue hop like at 1 mile an hour just to get through to one area. And I think that that's a really big problem in Wind Waker as well. The other thing that I'm going to mention, can we also mention the fact that I think Puppet Ganon is one of the stupidest final bosses in any Zelda game?
It's not. I love
it.
That
definitely
fight.
Is. The final showdown with Ganon at the top is tight. Not saying that. I'm saying Puppet Ganon. The fact of just this one random blocky thing just throwing random spheres at you, I think that's such a lame way to do it. In Ocarina of Time, you're literally, there's like an organ playing, you're hitting lightning blast back at Ganondorf as the ground's crumbling beneath your feet. That's a dope final boss. Puppet Ganon is just
volleyball
weak.
with Ganondorf. Why is that cool?
It's not. The scenery is constantly changing. That's so dynamic and cool. So here's your counterpoint before I'll wrap it up with my final thoughts.
Okay, so and I'm actually not going to counter too much. I agree. Temple of the Gods, I agree with. Moving the statue around at a snail's pace was fucking obnoxious.
Yes.
Everything else in the temple was fine, and I feel like it wasn't done as much as you make it. It's not like you did it every single room.
There was 3 statues, though. 3 of them.
Yeah, but with Medley and Makar, I didn't mind it. I actually really enjoyed playing as Makar. Flying around as him and wiggling his little feet around was always kind of a joy to me. So I didn't think it was tedious. I thought it was kind of fun to actually play as these different characters during that time, and I think it helped with the puzzles. So I didn't mind it with Makar and Medley. I did mind it with the statue, but again, that's one temple. There were 3 of them, but the temple was so vast, there was a lot more to it than that anyway. So I feel like I'll give you that half of the temple. I can't give Earth Temple and Wind Temple because it was fun to play as them, and it also felt like you had to kind of take care of them, which I didn't mind. I feel like that is an interesting design. Could it have been done better? Yeah, I think it would have been better if they found a way to make the switch quicker, but I still really like that you had to take care of them. It was similar to the end when you had of Ocarina of Time, you had to carry Princess Zelda down. You have to take care of someone, and so it adds that extra incentive of, well, I can't just watch myself, I have to make sure this person is safe as well. It didn't do it in every temple, so it didn't get annoying the whole time, but I liked it for those couple temples. I feel like that was an interesting trope to do, so I didn't mind it. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick before I get to my closing thoughts is accessibility of the games. I think Wind Waker is an easier game to jump into as a starting Zelda fan, because Ocarina of Time's temples can be a bit confusing and they can be a bit intimidating at times, especially the later ones. Not that they're hard in terms of difficulty, which they are. I would never knock a game for being hard. I don't think it's a bad thing that Ocarina of Time's harder than Wind Waker, but I do think it's more confusing. I think it's easier to get lost and then get frustrated with the level designs. I think the Wind Waker temples as a whole are easier to navigate, so you're spending, and they're a lot more concise, so you're spending more time just actually making progress. Or in Ocarina of Time, I feel like there's a lot of times where you just don't know where to go and you get frustrated, right? As a kid playing Ocarina of Time, there were a couple times I got annoyed and was like, I don't know where to go from here. Wind Waker, I never really got that aspect. Again, that's not a huge issue for me. Ocarina of Time is I say, more difficult game, but I also think that makes Wind Waker more accessible to new players. If I had a kid that wanted to learn to play Zelda games, I would start them with Wind Waker, and that's not just because it's my favorite. I think it's the easiest to learn and the easiest to get involved in. So again, I think tick for tack going back and forth, these games have different flaws in different areas. I think Wind Waker's underrated in all of the things that Ocarina of Time gets credit for. I think Wind Waker deserves so much more credit in terms of its story, its characters, its designs. Wind Waker gets a lot of credit in other areas, but I think it's so underrated in those things as well. I guess that's kind of me giving my closing thoughts now, because I figure we're moving to the end. But I feel like Wind Waker stands up to Ocarina of Time a lot more than people think it does. But on top of that, it's more accessible. It's more of a childlike, whimsical game, but it has those same plot points. It's
You
just about
dinged
much
Super Mario 64 on that last time. Don't
did I
say
ding
childlike
it on?
whimsicality. Yeah, you dinged Super Mario 64 on that last time.
I didn't ding it
You
on
say-
whimsicality.
Yeah, you said that childlike whimsicality doesn't matter. Whatever, sorry.
No, I said it doesn't matter because there's nothing else in that game. I said that's the only fun thing about it. But I'm saying Wind Waker has that, but it also has a lot of breadth and depth underneath that surface, too. So it still has a fun plot, it still has a detailed story and all of that. Mario 64 doesn't have that, that's why I dinged it on that. Because I feel like you can't just say you're childlike, therefore you're good. Wind Waker's childlike, but it also has all these other aspects that Ocarina of Time has, and on top of that, I think Wind Waker's an all-around more enjoyable experience in terms of being easier to navigate. If you're a Zelda expert, you'd probably enjoy Ocarina of Time more, but if you're trying to get into the franchise and you're trying to make an easy-to-access game, I would give it to Wind Waker. I don't know.
All right, so I'm just gonna say for Wind Waker or for the Wind Temple and the Earth Temple what they are escort missions. They're bad in Trophy for a reason, Mike. Just saying. But here's my closing thoughts on it because I know we went really long and I know that Travis has a lot to kind of digest and spit back out for us. The issues I have with Wind Waker are pretty relevant. The Great Sea is empty. I don't care what people say. You can talk about side content, everything. They tried to fix a huge problem that they had with other problems, and that's just a bad design choice, really. The fact that so many of the later temples in the games while they had good ideas, in practice they were very lacking. So in terms of escorting Makar and Medley and the statues throughout those dungeons, whether it's for a short or a long time, they were very big flaws in the game. Ocarina of Time went for more. They shot for the stars and accomplished way more than Wind Waker did. Both of them are very great games, and again, you've seen this in the debate. They're fantastic freaking games. I deserve that either of these games deserve to make it to the finals. But the big difference is Ocarina of Time was a more concise vision, didn't have as much downtime with the Triforce collecting, which again, huge issue that they had to make very much better in Wind Waker HD. Also, another thing is Wind Waker HD had to have a lot more changes than Ocarina of Time 3D because of all the flaws that it had and what people complained about. Ocarina of Time also had a better supporting cast, no matter what you say, because they helped develop Link as a main character and was a more relatable experience to anybody who plays it. It develops Link, a seemingly non-vocal protagonist, in a way that no other Zelda games even attempt to do.
But how did Wind Waker not do that? I don't understand that. Wind Waker had a cast character that built him up too.
It did not nearly to the degree that Ocarina of Time did.
Well,
how?
Literally, it's a transitioning experience of
Ocarina of
becoming
Time.
a man.
He just went from a child to an adult by going into a fucking temple. No one made
No,
him
he
into a
didn't.
man.
He literally had a supporting cast that guided him through milestones to become an adult.
No, he
That's
went to a temple.
that's bigger.
and fell
That's
asleep
way
for
bigger
7
than
years.
my grandma was sick. That's way bigger than that.
That's fucked up. Don't bring his grandma into this, Nick.
I love the grandma on the elixir soup. I'm just saying that the supporting cast with Ocarina of Time was better. And also, it's a game that's very enjoyable on the surface. At face value, you can like it, but it also has the depth that Zelda proficient people do, and you've already touched on that. It's a game that caters to both audiences extremely well. The reason I think Ocarina of Time is better, it has more depth, and it is a way more concise game.
Okay, but we gotta end this. I don't think it's more concise. I think the temples are clunky. I think Wind Waker has a great underrated supporting cast. They're all fun characters that build Link up and they have his back when he needs them.
They don't, though.
He's forced
They
to
just
go on an
don't.
adventure. He's forced in on this because of his sister. It's weird, actually. I want to bring this up, too. You mentioned that Wind Waker has the trope of, he's just a descendant. Is that not what Ocarina of Time had with Navi, where the Deku Tree says Link has to go on this adventure? In Ocarina of Time, he was forced to fight Ganondorf. Wind Waker,
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
wasn't. No,
What do
he
you
wasn't.
mean he wasn't? Navi went
was-
and literally said, "You're the one that's destined to save this land."
That's not what she said at all. Are you kidding?
What did the Deku Tree tell Navi to go to Link for?
The Deku literally just said Link's time to come. That's all it was.
I think we know what that's implying.
It's not okay. It's not the same language though. Language matters, Mike.
Wind Waker had nothing to do with Link being forced into it until the end of the game. Up until that point, Link was just a guy trying to save his sister until he realized Ganondorf's the one that kidnapped his sister.
That's what happens in Ocarina of Time. You have to do so because of all the people that you're losing along the way to become a man. It's a coming of age story linked with the hero story.
Who did Link
Everything's
even lose along
tropey.
the way? Link didn't lose.
Everything's
Everyone
tropey.
survived.
Everything's been done before. Ocarina of Time does it better than Wind Waker. It has more depth and is more
You keep
concise.
saying Link lost people. Who did he lose? No one died in Ocarina of Time.
He lost Saria. He lost Runia. He lost
did. She's
Ruto.
alive.
He lost Impa.
She's alive at the end of the game.
No, she's not. Okay.
She's in the sage place. Link goes there all the time too.
Yes, and Link
can't
can't see her. Mike,
What?
I didn't think we were going to be yelling at this point.
I totally thought you guys were going to be yelling 15 minutes ago, but here we are.
All right, I'm voting for Wind Waker.
I'm voting for Ocarina of Time.
Travis.
Actually, no. I'm voting for Outlast. You can't stop me.
You're up, Travis. Me
Okay,
and Nick won't
so
talk anymore, it's all
I'm
you.
just going to put in my little... in terms of accessibility, Mike is definitely correct because Wind Waker I was actually able to beat. I did play the remastered version, so I don't know how tedious sailing was in the original. I didn't think it was
It's just a little bit slow. Did you get the quick
Basically,
sail?
double the time
I
you're
did
on
get
the
quick
sea
sail.
without
No,
the
shut
quick
up.
sail.
You
I
did
was
get
able
the
to quick sail, so I don't know, but like...
So just take that out. If you couldn't quick sail, that's what the other game was. Because the sailing is the
And
same
every-
speed unless you have it.
And every single time that you had to get a Triforce chart, imagine that for all 8 Triforce charts.
That's not what Travis asked, Nick.
I'm just saying, if you're
Stop
talking
trying to-
about what's difference
You're
between
being
the
a
HD
weasel.
version and
You're
the
being a
original
weasel.
version, that's what's
Don't
different.
be a weasel.
Because like
I'm
I
not being a
definitely
weasel.
didn't
I'm saying that's
mind.
what's different.
I
You asked
definitely
what
did
the
not
difference
mind
is.
collecting any of the Triforce things, but again, I don't.
Because you
know
only
if-
had to fish for 3. Never mind.
Let him go on.
I
He's
didn't
just saying
mind
it's positive
fishing
and
for
negative.
it though, so like, I don't know. It just seems knick-knacky. The whole growing up into adulthood, it's a point. Like, I don't know. As a kid, I'm not thinking, oh, look at all these things I'm gonna do and become a man. Like, definitely saving my sister is more relatable than I'm going to not be a child anymore when I finish this game. Like, it's a really cool point now that I'm reflecting on it, but, like, as a kid, I wouldn't give two craps about, you know, how I'm going to lose my innocence.
Has something for everybody.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, because, like, I didn't mind sailing, but again, if I had quick sail, maybe I would have thought it was too slow, because I often do that whenever I'm sailing in any sort of video game, if there's not enough, but I don't know. Let's see. Characters. Sheik was cool. That was
cool.
That was an interesting plot that I did not see coming with that. But for, like, the supporting cast, like, they're both good. I don't see why one has to say one is garbage. Because,
I'm
again,
just saying one's better than the other.
you said garbage.
You did.
Because I wanted to tell Mike at this. Never mind. I'm digging my own grave at this moment right now. I'll look back at it. I didn't. mean
That's
to
why
say
I'm trying not
garbage
to
if I
talk.
did.
I'm like,
One's
I don't want to
better
say
than the
anything
other.
and jinx anything right now.
Right? Yeah, because, you know, I'm holding your fate.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to say anything bad anymore.
But in the end, Mike said that he was going to give me $5. So
That's true. Mike did say he was gonna give him $5,
Oh,
and that $5 gift card to In-N-Out, baby.
This isn't rigged at all, guys. I promise.
I don't know. It's so hard to say because, like, I was able to beat Wind Waker. I got engrossed in it, whereas 64, I have attempted, even in my adult life, I think I'm on my 3rd attempt in trying to beat it, and then I keep getting to pretty much the same point and then saying, like, I'm just not into it anymore. Like, I've reached the same point in Breath of the Wild where I'm like, okay, I've played most of the game, and I'm still not nearly as engrossed in it as people said I would be, so I feel like I shouldn't have to push myself to actually beat it. Like, I'm not going to say it's a bad game, it's just not meant for me. Okay, so what would you guys say is the core Zelda, like, this is what a Zelda game is supposed to be?
Mike, I'll give this one that's non-biased, okay? For me, I would say the core Zelda experience is having, basically being on a gigantic adventure. Whether,
Yeah, I would say the same thing, actually. Yeah.
Gigantic
it's
adventure?
an action-adventure game. It's an action-adventure game at its core with a lot of like active elements, I would say.
I would say the two
So-
big things, are exploration, right?
Exploration.
And good dungeon design. I think a Zelda game has to have good dungeons.
Yes, I would agree.
Those are the two
Also,
main
the whole
things
thing
for
about getting weapons as you're in the dungeons and whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah.
I would say exploration, adventurous, the feeling of adventure, and dungeon design.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say whichever game gave you more of that, I think is a good one to go off of.
Okay. So, because I've pretty much beaten, because I got to the last temple right before actually facing Ganondorf, before that stupid save file got corrupted and I got super pissed off.
Yeah.
I would say I probably got more engrossed in wanting to travel in Wind Waker more. Because I actually did travel, I think, most of the map, whereas definitely in certain parts of Ocarina of Time, I just wanted to get from point A to point B because I had it with that dungeon, being the water temple especially. Because, my god, if you forgot to hit that one goddamn button that's on the bottom, you have to go through the entire freaking thing again. That one upset me. So I'll probably give my point to Wind Waker. Not that Ocarina of Time is a bad game, but to me, the thing that got me exploring the most would be in Wind Waker.
All right. I'm fucking tired right now after that 40-minute debauchery.
I'm fucking angry, man.
Yeah, I know you are. I'll eat those tears. We should do the second one still. We should do the 2 thing. So Wind Waker's moving on. Great choice, Travis. I will send you your money under the table.
Travis, I was actually about to vote for Halo 3. I'm not doing it anymore.
Oh, fuck. That does bring us to our next matchup, though. We have Smash Bros. Ultimate versus Halo 3. We'll try to squeeze this in and see if we can get this under an hour, which we should be able to. This one shouldn't be as long by any stretch. Smash Bros. Ultimate, classic Smash Bros. Game that just came out recently. Everyone loves it. Joker's awesome. That's cool. And now we can talk about him, too, if we want. In Halo 3, astounding multiplayer game. We've already had so many amazing introductions for this game. Incredible campaign, incredible story. Best game to come out on the Xbox 360 by a lot of people's mentality. That's very subjective, but a lot of people feel that way. This will be an interesting debate. So this is one I don't care much for, so I'm just going to kind of sit there and see what happens.
Okay, so I'll talk first because I feel like both of you have talked a lot and you need a breather. So I do love both of these games a lot. I've played like split screen, or since Smash Bros is one screen, just couch playing with all my friends all the time. I think Smash Bros is still my go-to game if I have more than one person with me, just because like even CJ's fiance plays with us whenever we play because it's just very easy to get into. There's not much explaining to like get you started, at least. Obviously there's a lot to master with it, but that's if you want to. You don't have to. You can still have fun with it. Halo 3, there's like some things you can kind of do to change it, but for the most part, it's just going to be, you're running around shooting people, and you can like toy with the actual game rules, because we have a couple different game modes we like to play. Like we downloaded a thing called Frogger, and that's when you are literally using vehicles and jumping off ramps, and then there's someone in the middle with a tank and he's trying to shoot you down. You only get 1 life, and you have to like make like I think 6 jumps in order to actually get to the finish line. So it's just a fun little like way to kind of make it feel a little different. And then like if you're able to get to the finish line, you get to pick up an invincibility armor and then pick a hammer, and then you destroy the tank, which is super fun. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about single player experience, Smash Bros sucks. Like Halo 3 is by far and away a much better experience single player. Like you can dabble in online, but even online, like Smash Bros has things they have to correct. I'm not saying that the online is like intolerable. It definitely works, but
the online sucks. You can say it. I'll say it.
There's room for improvement.
There's a ton of room for improvement.
Yeah. Like I barely even touch it because it's just not worth it for me to actually play online at the moment. But now it's interesting because before there was no like, you had to play these set maps that they had, but now they actually did add Stage Builder to Ultimate.
That's a good point.
And
yeah.
I will bring up, I greatly enjoy watching YouTubers just play on some custom matches or custom stages, because some people put in so much effort, and it's a beautiful map. Like, I'm like, wow, that's actually super cool, and it's a good design, and it's not weird. Then there's the other people who, some of them literally just, one of them was called hotboxing, and it was literally it was in the shape of a car, and you're put in the middle of it, and it was all fire. It was lava around the entire thing, and I'm like, that is hilarious, but wow. Like, it was impossible to die, because you were literally inside a box, so you were literally just bouncing around in lava, and I'm like, okay.
Well, that's interesting, because what I was going to say, too, is Halo 3's big advantage, I was going to say, that was probably going to lead me to end up voting for it in the end, is the customization, the different ways you can play. Mm-hmm. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, Smash Ultimate still has the coin thing, right?
What do you mean?
You know how, like, there's time, stock, stamina, there's still coin mode?
I think so.
There's nobody uses that mode, man.
And
if it is, it's not even talked about to this day.
But and that's the thing, right? And no one talks about it, which is fine. But with custom stages, you can probably kind of build stages around that. You know, like you can make obstacle courses. You can customize Smash Bros. Now however you want. Smash Bros. Community doesn't like that. I feel like they want the core game to just be that. But the Halo community is a lot different. The Halo community is definitely more open to variety and customization. Mm-hmm. But Smash Bros. Has that with the coin mode and all that. And custom stages, you can really design a map to be something other than just a fight. Like, Smash Bros. Now has unlocked that same potential that Halo has.
Some people even, like, rebuilt Break the Targets, which was hilarious.
Yeah,
right, it's just cool.
Let me interrupt you right there, though, Mike. I'm saying when it comes down to Smash Bros., the issue that I have, and one of the biggest issues with items in general, is because it's a fighting game, each fighter comes with its own attributes. In Halo, you basically, I'm not saying that I don't know if there's like multiple different soldiers that you can pick.
Yeah, in Halo 3, there weren't any sort of like custom ability. Once it reached the Reach, you were able to kind of pick a suit, which kind of gave you one different power, so it kind of varied. Yeah. But in 3,
but that's what I'm saying.
Same.
But with Halo, that's what I'm saying though. With Halo, your customization options, basically your fighter moveset, is those items. One of my biggest problems with items is they basically neuter the entire variety and like a diverse cast that Ultimate has, because you're not playing with those movesets anymore. You're just playing with items. So that's one of the biggest problems that I have with items, is that you lose what basically you're all fighting the same fighter, and the only thing that happens is items. So yeah, you can talk about customization or whatnot, but customization in Smash Bros comes at a cost. So if you're going to, like, if you want to play on, I don't know, the Smash 64 desk where there's a lot of people who created that custom stage, if you want to play on that with items, you're officially playing the exact same character. I know it's not exactly that, but customization at Smash Bros. Comes as a cost, but it's an inherent problem because it's a fighting game at its core. Mm-hmm. So that's a point for Halo in customization.
It is. No, and it definitely is, and I'm not trying to say, like, Smash Bros. Now has the equal level, but it is an important factor to consider that Halo before was dominating in that area. Smash Bros. Can close the gap. The other thing I was going to say is, again, it comes down to the community. I don't think the Smash Bros. Community as a whole is going to be as creative as the Halo community was.
Based on those limitations, yeah.
Yeah, and the Halo community really embraced, like, going as off the wall as they could. I think with Smash Bros. Being a little bit more limited and it being a fighting game at its core, I think it's going to prevent that game from being as customizable as Halo 3 had a higher ceiling for the potential of it. So
right, because
the point, but Smash Bros. Narrowed the gap.
Yeah, definitely. Because like what Nick was saying, with how everyone has their different kit, like because it's a fighting game in its core, you can't really change things all too much. Like, because in the end, you're still gonna have to be fighting in order to get to either if it's finishing off your stocks, getting the most kills, or collecting the most coins. For the most part, it's still gonna have to, fight. Whereas Halo, like, there's even a mode called Griff Ball where you don't even have to shoot at all. You're literally trying to get a ball and a goal. And then, like, King of the Hill and all those type things. So, there's just...
The day Smash Bros. Implements that, I think that would be the next step. Because that game, Smash Bros. Is already pretty perfect, I would say, in terms of what it's trying to be. I think having those extra modes, I think, would be so beneficial to a game like that, because having those different characters do things like that, because Halo 3 didn't need that. Like, who asked for Griff Ball?
No one, but I love it.
But it helped its core. So, like, Smash Bros., does it need a soccer-type mode? No one's going to ask for that. But how awesome would it be if it had that? Where you
Super
could
Smash Bros. Super Strikers.
Yeah, that would be so
But
awesome.
I will say this, in terms of custom stages, there's people who do make that. Like, there's so many Smash Get Ball maps out there. Like, there's people who create those things, too. And, again, the Smash Bros. Scene wasn't asking for it either. And again, Mike, I know we've yelled at each other in the past hour or so, very much. I don't think that's a factor. I think at its core, I think Halo 3 has a lot of customization options, but in terms of what you're saying and in terms of the creativity that is being enabled, I think that the Smash Bros. And Halo 3 communities, while Halo might edge it out, I'm saying that Smash Bros. Definitely creates those custom ideas that they want to do, and they have the opportunity to do so. The only difference is Nintendo doesn't really embrace those as like a mode. I'm pretty sure Microsoft actually gave them the option to have it as an actual mode. That's where I think the big disparity is. It's Nintendo, while they like the fact that Smash Bros. Is popular, they're not really embracing it in the same way that Halo did. Like, Halo was embraced as a competitive game, and also with its custom modes. Smash Bros., while it likes the fact that it's still doing well in the competitive scene and its extra modes, it's not really saying that, oh, we want to have this as a feature in our game. So
yeah,
I think it comes down to support from the developer.
Yeah, and that could be it. Because I think the big thing is from Halo, if you ask people what their favorite part of Halo is, most people will say the, competitive multiplayer, like, just deathmatch or whatever, but a lot of people would say things like Griffball and things like that. And if you look at Halo videos, there's a lot of that. It's hard for me to imagine a main player in Smash Bros. Like Zero or whoever really getting into something like a Smash Bros. Version of Griffball, right? Like, I feel like the Smash Bros. Community, and I could be wrong, wouldn't embrace those things as much as they would the Halo. And I think that's because Smash Bros. Is seen as more of a competitive scene than Halo is. Halo has the competitive following, but there's a ton of people that play it competitively for the other modes, right? Smash Bros. Doesn't have a lot of... And again, I think it is the developers, if I had to pick, because Smash Bros. Has never really embraced having other modes that are as big as its fighting mode. Halo did. Halo said, hey, we're a shooter, but we have these other modes that are incredible. Smash Bros. Essentially deserted everything else. They deserted Target Smash and all that, when they should have embraced that stuff even more and made that something that people could play the game for,
Oh, I agree.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's see.
All right, Aquapars aside, can we just vote and get this over with? It's Halo 3.
Halo 3!
Yeah, I'd say Halo 3.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I got so frustrated about, because Ultimate, it's such an easier bracket than Mario Odyssey, and, Halo took out Mario Odyssey, and also Breath of the Wild. Like, I think those games deserve to go way farther than Ultimate did. I'm just going to do a little bit of a mini rant, because I've been a little quiet during this debate. There's still a lot of issues with Ultimate right now, and I'm not just talking, like, competitively speaking. There's still a lot of really big, I'm not talking, like, game-breaking glitches, but there's still, like, a lot of very bad, but some pretty bad mechanics. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed. Online, it's just kind of like, is not even like the tip of the iceberg on like some of the foundation of the game that they need to fix up, that I don't even think that maybe they're working on it, or maybe they just don't care to. And I'm not talking about minor complaints that I have, like putting more end lag on on moves, or
nerfing Alamar,
or certain stuff like that. Yeah, I freaking hate Alamar, man. That character needs to die in a hole. But anyway, it's not even that. Like, there's so much that Nintendo still needs to fix, and I know they're coming out with DLC, and I know this probably won't even be touched on, but the game where it stands, while yes, it's passable and it can be a compelling game to play in a competitive setting, which I do, it still needs so much work. Even though it comes very polished and the level of detail is amazing, there's a lot of fighting game concepts and like fighting game fundamental things that need to be cleaned up. And I'm definitely not going to go into detail on it here, but if you want to know about it, tell me and I'll make a video about all the shit Ultimate needs to fix, because there's still a lot of it. But I really wish it was Odyssey or Breath of the Wild, because they would have made it way farther and had a better chance later on. Halo 3 is just better. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, don't be sorry. It is. That's why it's in my top 5 games, because it's beloved.
Yeah, Travis, my number 1 went out, okay? So shut up about your top 5.
My number 1 went out too.
I thought your number 1 was,
My number 1 wasn't even on this list.
I don't really have a number 1. It was like, I don't know. Resident Evil might be my number 1. Wind Waker might. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have any
in
game that you're really wanting to win anymore, Mike, so screw you.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm not forgetting this. Not forgetting this at all. Both of you.
I love
Both of you. Sleep with one eye open.
I did
Bye,
ask
everyone.
what was the core thing for Zelda, and you said being immersed in wanting to explore.
I didn't say being immersed.
Well,
That was
Nick.
somebody that was giving you propaganda.
well,
Nick,
to me,
you
if I'm
would've
going to
said having a
explore, I have to
fairy,
be
you would've
immersed.
won.
No, I'm not going to explore just because I hate a place and I want to know if there's actually something good. I want to like.
Mike, you know, if I mentioned the fairy part, that's an easy counterpoint for you because Navi sucks. Mentioning the fairy would be a nail in the coffin, honestly.
What you should have said is every Zelda game needs to have time traveling or else it's a flop. And then you would have won.
Shut up.
Alright. This video
Both of them better sleep with one eye open, as I said before. Bye, everyone. I hope you enjoyed.
Well,
I
I'm
hate
looking
them
forward
too
to
so
seeing you
much more
soon,
now.
Nick. Bye.
You're not invited into my apartment anymore.